Hello guys, this is Dr. Cool Auto Fix. Today we have a 307, something like that. Yeah, 307. The customer's complaint on this car is that it cranks but it doesn't start, and he said the electrician has actually checked it all out and still he wouldn't be able to figure out exactly what the problem is. So today I come here with my scanner. I've fixed the problem related to this car not revving up before. So today we're going to be trying to solve a problem related to crank no start issue with this 307. So the first thing I'm going to be telling my boys to do is, in this situation, is to actually check out the fuses and see, suppose it's a fuse related problem, before we start diving into computer issues. So the fuse panel and the OBD port for this very car is here, and the fuse panel is somewhere around here. So if you're having the same kind of problem, you want to make sure that you check all those fuses out first before you start going into other hectic ones. Now the BSI, the built-in system interface, which is mostly where the problem used to come or emerge from, is underneath here. Right, so you can see it right. That's what my camera is saying. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this one off. It has a tab that controls it here, which you're gonna be using a screwdriver to tighten it the other way, then remove it. So, and drag it out. Now you can see the built-in system interface there. For most Peugeots that I've seen, that is where most of the problems do come from, and some can be electronic control module related issue, or security anti-theft issue. So here I'm gonna be trying to loosen out some stuffs to get my hands on this BSI, so we can check out the fuses and see what went wrong. Then from there we can go ahead and hook up the scanner to it and see what happens, why it cranks and not start. But for this moment, let me try to attempt to start it and see if it's gonna start. I already have the key in the ignition, so okay, the ignition came right up. You're seeing the stop sign. You're seeing the stop sign. You see the auto flashing. The fan has been bypassed again, you can hear it. So let me go ahead and crank it. Okay, it seems like the battery terminal head is not well connected. Go and reconnect it. So I'm gonna try that again. Okay, for this very car, be very careful. Let it not detach the battery head while you're trying to crank it, else it's gonna switch into immobilize, so it's gonna don't want to start. Okay, it's not even behaving like something I want to start at all. Hello, put it on again, try to crank it and see if it's gonna start. It sounds like something where the engine is not even bolted well. It's shaking really much, right? Like as if the seating is broken. The down must be the dog bone seating. Okay, let's find a way to disconnect that fan in this fuse box. Yeah. Get that multimeter, test all this fuse. Okay, so I'm gonna be trying to disconnect that fan so I can be able to do a proper diagnostics on this thing here, because if the fan stays on running, it's gonna kill the battery. Check out this one here, and it doesn't seem to have any fuse that is blown out here. So the next thing I want to check out here is check out all these sockets and see if there is any bent pin or any stuff like that. Then the other one there is we also unpin this fan so that it doesn't run continuously, because we're trying to make sure that the battery stays alive while we do the diagnosis. And not the reason why this car cranks but will not start. I see that the previous electrician who worked on it have actually attempted on replacing the crankshaft position sensor here, and maybe it didn't work out. It's not even maybe it didn't work out, because if suppose this has worked out, there wouldn't be any need of them calling us to come and get this job done. So here I'm seeing the several attempts which they have pinched some of the wires that goes to the ignition coil, that lies ignition coil control module that lies up here, and there is not even any bolt holding it in place. As you can see, it's really shaking. So now this is what most of you guys are gonna be getting to update your own knowledge. When it comes to troubleshooting a car that will crank and not start, it's not always simple. Sometimes it can be just very simple as maybe no fuel, because at that very point we'll have to check for fuel and make sure that the fuel is actually supplying to the injector rail, which for this one here, this is the fuel line here. We are going to disconnect it off, and even before, instead of disconnecting it here based on the design of this very car here, instead of you to disconnect it, it is easier for you to come over here and pinch this, and okay, you can see right there that there is fuel. So you can go ahead and check some other things here, and a lot of things can actually contribute to this not starting, like the map sensor, a faulty map sensor, a faulty coolant sensor, crankshaft position sensor, a hall sensor, any of them. But since we've actually disconnected the phone, let's go ahead and plug in our stand 2 and take a look at it and see what is actually wrong. Then aside that, let me give you one tips again that most of you might be failing. We have the ECU right here. Aside this ECU being here, and this fuse, so if you have finished checking this fuse and you think you're done, you're not done. You need to open here and flip it. They have a bigger fuse that controls the power down there on this place here. All right, so I want to go ahead and pull this one out. I want to pull it out for this camera. Okay, so you can see it. The person who have actually attempted it knows about this car. So one of the fuse seemed like it has been damaged. I was trying to pull it out, and we've rewired it. So what I'm gonna be doing here next is I'm gonna be pulling out these plugs here while I remove the key from the ignition so that it doesn't go into security. So you off the ignition. Okay, back on the built-in system interface, which is the BSI here. He said he's checked it, and they seem to be pretty much okay, but there are some fuses which you can be able to check if they're okay. Like this one here, you can't check it without pulling it, so you need to pull the bolts. I can see that they have actually rewired it up. So it seems they have actually here and put it here. I can go ahead and start disconnecting some sockets and take a look at it and see if there is any burnt pins. But that's a lot. So I suggest, if you are the one who is dealing with this kind of problem, go straight into diagnosing it and know exactly what the problem is, since we have actually removed the fan. So I'm gonna go ahead and connect my dongle. Okay, then we start the diagnostic procedures. Put the ignition on. ignition is on. It's still writing stop. So I'm actually diagnosing this like a new big guy on who knows nothing about Peugeot. So it has a stop sign there. I think that stop sign is actually a limp mode, and limp mode can often come as a result of maybe there is insufficient oil inside the engine oil inside the system, or there is some sort of underperformance in the engine system that performs below the threshold parameter, so it makes the ECU to shut off the system prior until when that issue is rectified. So I'm going to be going ahead and scan the system and see what happens. So as usual, I'll go ahead. Okay, go ahead. So since this is definitely under European car model, I'm gonna go ahead to Europe and scroll. Okay, that's Peugeot right there, so go ahead. Okay, right now there is something funny. You can see it just stay for a while and it goes off even without me touching the key. So still gonna get it back on. Let my scanner connect. Okay, it has paired, so I'm gonna go ahead. The funny side is if you want to scan this automatically, most often times it's not gonna pick it, but let's give it a shot today and see if it's gonna work out differently. Most often times I don't really like doing all these long videos because it takes a lot of times, really. Okay, the car doesn't support, you can see that the car doesn't support the function, so please select manually. So that's another wall right there. Cars 207, get to know it. 307. Okay, this is 307, so we'll go ahead and we'll select 307 and allow it to wait. Important to have a hand-free starting access, please, hands-free remote whatsoever. See, I think there is a problem with this ignition because ignition he just off the ignition without my notice. Okay, remote electronic trailer that can operate a service diagnostics engine ECU whatsoever. Let's proceed it. Now loading. And it's gonna ask you the brain box type. It's gonna ask you what kind of mannerless and stupid question. VIN unknown, engine type unknown. Okay, so we're gonna go on to diagnosis. Go to system selection, built-in system interface, engines and gearbox. I'm gonna be going to the engine and gearbox because that's where my problem is. I'm gonna go to engine ECU and see it says the ignition should be switched on, which is actually on. Okay, now here is where I get mad. How do you tell the kind of brain box, the ECU that is here? So with all these numbers here, what we're gonna do here is we're gonna take this information, then we'll go to the brain box of the ECU that is on the engine side there and find out the code that is actually on it, and that is how we can be able to find it. So the ECU there, we have a VAR T5A6S. VAR. Oh shit. We don't see anything like that. Okay, let's look for 8216 or T5A65. There is no such thing. 8 what? Okay, it says Bosch. Is it Bosch? We'll first of all have to identify the brand. Unfortunately, if we have to do that, we have to pull this guy out of the shelf Okay, hold this thing. Pull this one out. Hold this. Okay, pull this one out of the shelf. Okay, it's Bosch, and now we are participating in space here, made in France. Let's go over there. So it says Bosch, and I have Bosch here, and the number here we're finding is what we're looking for. Bosch. Okay, ME. Okay, so we can see it's ME7 Mach 7 4.48, and we're seeing it on the first one here. So let's go ahead and choose it and see what happens. Okay, let's go ahead. Let's go inside, because right now we can't see it very much. We'll go inside where you can participate fully on how it's going. Okay, so we go ahead and read DTC. Okay, we have a lot of shitty things going on, so we got that right with that right procedure right there. So we have oxygen sensor. Can it cause a problem? No. What about the NOx sensor signal is short-circuited to earth? It can actually cause it. Okay, now go ahead again. Ignition integrated phase detection, can it actually cause that problem? Yes, ignition integrated. Do you know what that is, guys? The P1, the P1327 is actually the ignition coil. So for it to actually bring that one out, so that means it's not doing its job. Then you're having, okay, a misfiring. That's like all cylinders. That's what that language there means. Considerable combustion, misfiring, unspecified cylinders. Okay, then we still go ahead on P0300. That is a random misfire, because if suppose it's cylinder 1, it should be P0301. If it's cylinder 2, it's P0302. But this is P0300. Okay, now we're participating. Now we talk about P0201, injector 1, number 1, number 2, control. Okay, injector 4. So it's speaking a lot of code. Now when you have this kind of problem, what you need to do here, incorrect voltage, whatsoever, there's a lot of problems here. Fan assembly, coherence, and whatsoever. So what you want to do here is to wipe out all this entire code and start afresh. Now the ignition issue thing we're talking about here is still, so I'm going to go ahead and touch the key again and let it come back on. It comes back on. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and clear this code before we know what's up. We'll back with you shortly. Okay guys, so based on the information we see on the EC, on the scanner, it complains about the ignition control module. It talks about the NOx sensor. The NOx sensor of this car is going to be really hidden, because I've looked for it. Front here is supposed to be bolted to the engine block, and since it's not here, definitely it's going to be at the rear side, and that's going to be warranting us to lose a lot of things out. But I can do it right now, so we're just losing this out to check it, because this is quite more easier. I'm going to look for it to see if there is any broken part of it that actually make it to malfunction. If there is none, we can put it back. But since I was complaining, it's better to actually have an alternative to use as a test subject while trying to diagnose this crank no start issue. But you guys have actually watched it and know that we actually confirmed that there is fuel coming, fuel being delivered. And the next thing here is, if this is not actually in a very very good condition, there is no way it's gonna allow spark to happen, and if it doesn't spark, the car is not going to start. Then we also need to find that NOx sensor, because if the NOx sensor wire is jammed or any reason sort of, then the ECU will never allow the car to start. I believe the streams of information which I've given you guys on this crank nose start is more than enough to actually troubleshoot and fix yours. So right now I'm putting my hand at the back of this place to see if I can find that knock sensor. Okay, my hand can actually reach it right now, but to give you guys a shot, it's gonna be a problem. So like I said, it's bolted at the back of the engine, the lower down part of the intake inlet manifold. So I'm trying to figure out, oh, here we go. Okay, the knock sensor is connected, the wire is connected. Maybe it's just some sort of a random error, but I want to trace the wire and see where the wire goes. The wiring harness, let's see. Now this most of the times can be quite a little bit difficult, especially when you are not using the wiring diagram, just like we're not using right now. But there's going to be a case. Well, remove it. Okay, so far we don't see anything to be damaged there, so it could be just some kind of a random error code or something of that kind. The spark plugs are all intact, so, and my check on the knock sensor seemed to be pretty good because the socket is there and the wire is intactly connected. I'm just trying to locate the wiring harness and find out the color coding so I can be able to trace it and see if there's any disruption in that color coding, in that wiring that supplies that fits the knock sensor, before I can proceed further with the diagnostics. So now the goal here is to start the car, not just to necessarily diagnose it. Okay, I'm trying to show you guys the knock sensor wiring. You can see right here, but it's really far. I'm trying to bring it out a little bit more. Okay, you can see the knock sensor wiring here is interwoven. It's just two wires that is interwoven. I think there is blue there. It seems like it's not even two, it seems like it's three. Okay, it's actually two, but it has some tracer to it. Okay. So it seems to be intact. And, let me give you guys a shot which I'm going to actually use on our side and video that a little bit more and see the activity that happens there, because this client have actually complained that this car caught on fire some times ago and they are still yet to figure out exactly what resulted into that fire outbreak. So this putting my camera in there to be my eye is going to give me an overview of what has actually happened at the back there. If there is any disconnection, if there is any some sort of uninsulated wire there that's actually creating a mess, that's going to be okay. So my eyes can't see it, but my camera can see it. Okay guys,